beautiful souls, and welcome to the Balanced Consciousness Podcast. I'm Jessica Taylor, and I'm here with Cairo Moon. Hi, Cairo.
Hello.
And we have decided to start some energy chats, some energy check-ins. I'm really excited about this. First of all, for those of you who don't know Cairo, she was the guest on my latest episode. If you have not checked that out yet, I would highly recommend. We did a lot of talk on self-trust and really tapping into our abilities that everyone has. And we just need to kind of learn how our own systems communicate. So I know a lot of my followers have been talking more about how sensitive they are, how they want to learn how to work with those sensitivities and energy in general more. If you have not checked out that episode, it's a really, really great one. But welcome. We're doing an energy check-in. If you're tuning in at a super random time years later, this is all about us leading up to the spring equinox in
Mhm.
2024. And just to give you guys an idea, we are both highly sensitive empaths. We're intuitives. We have our own different labels we identify as, but we're coming at you first and foremost from our intuition. And I also happen to just be a complete mega nerd when it comes to astrology. I am not an astrologer, but I will be talking about some astrological components when we have these chats. And Cairo will be coming in with her psychic mediumship and talking about what she's been picking up on. With our conversations, we always start the talk and then we're like, oh, shoot, we need to hit record because everyone needs to hear this. So that's where
Yes,
we're
every
at.
time.
Yep, every time. So maybe, Cairo, we can start just talking about like 2024 thus far, right?
Yes, I
We
think that's good.
are,
Yes.
yeah, what is this? March 13th, I think that we're
Yeah,
filming this on. And
14th.
thank you. See,
14th. You got it.
we'll
You got
get
it.
there. Timelines is another big theme right now. So what my broken record message has been to the collective, leading up to 2024, and then it's just continued to be a broken record, is 2023 was so full of retrogrades, right? We were so in this deep review, like it was slow, go back and review again, go back. It was very restrictive.
Yeah.
It was sometimes it was suffocating, it would feel like we couldn't get that forward movement. And now we were kind of coming out of that a little bit in the beginning of 2024. And now this energy is so fast. The
Oh
amount of
my God.
changes. Yeah. Like what do
Yeah.
you have to say about thus far?
So what was kind of wild was I was doing the New Year's week around there was very, very packed with clients and readings, a lot of general readings, which completely makes sense. Um, And one message that without fail came up for everybody, and even myself in my own meditations, was 2024 is literally the New Year's around of 2024 was a legitimate portal of a massive, large scale timeline change. And because of that, we are no longer in the energy that we were in. We're not even in the same I want to say dimension that we were in 2023, and that's why everything since that New Year's has felt just times 10 on a fast scale. And I don't know if you have found this, but I have found that because of that, we are mass shedding what we can't take with us, what is lower vibrational in this reality. And it feels like there's just a lot of things coming up. And it feels really not productive, but in reality, it is one of the most productive things that can happen right now for our own lives and for a large scale society purge as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, like any of my followers who, tap into my healings with me, they've just been hearing so many broken record things
Yeah.
week by week. And they've all been everyone's going through huge life changes, most of us more than one.
Yep.
The old world you is gone. That's been the big message,
Yeah.
where I think currently we're in this really interesting space that's like we've done so much shedding and purging, and we're not necessarily done with it yet. If we need
No.
more, we'll always
Yeah.
purge more. But there is a little bit, and I don't know if you feel, I know now I'm talking about current energies again, but I've been feeling this theme of like the old version of us is gone, and yet there's still a part of us that's kind of grasping it still.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, at times, it feels almost like abandonment. Like, we feel like there's a part of us that we've lost, and it's
Yeah.
for a positive way, but for even moments of myself, I find myself grieving this version and
Mm,
feeling something missing, but also knowing that something more aligned and better is coming along. So it's I don't know, it's felt like this whole 2024 so far has been rapid Buddha waves of
yeah.
ups and downs and, "Oh my god, I'm so excited," and then this melancholy feeling of things that you missed, and it just kinda goes back
Yeah.
and forth, honestly.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up Buddha wave. Any
Because
of
of
my
you.
clients know this is
Yeah.
this is a term that I love to use. And I actually won't take credit. I got it from a mentor, but the purpose of life to me is what I call riding the Buddha wave. And the idea is that we are always going to have those peaks and valleys, right? We're never going to be linear, and we never want to be in a constant state of ecstasy or bliss. Even though that might sound nice, it's also highly stimulating. It's hard on our adrenals. It's still excitable. We forget to eat.
Yeah,
We get, all sorts of things, right? But what you said specifically is rapid Buddha waves. And
rapid.
that's what I'm feeling. It's like the plunge and then the climb are
Yeah.
are within a day.
Yeah, that's
you
exactly
know?
how from day to day, the energy is so different, and I almost wake up, like, with a little, like, "What is it gonna be today?" Because
Right.
I don't know, because it's
Right.
so vastly different, and a part of me thought that this was just something I was going through because I recently moved, and there's just a lot of changes going on in my life, but then the more clients that I see, I find that it really is a collective thing that we are all going through, which is kinda nice, to be like, "Oh, we're all in this together." Like, it's a little wild right now, but we're going to a really much more positive place, and we're all doing it together.
Absolutely. And again, another broken record message I say is you are not alone. When we can come together and go, I feel really alone, and then hear another person go, me too, me too, me too.
Yeah,
Alone is showing us that we're not alone. And,
yeah,
back to the talk of, releasing the old version of us and kind of grieving that. I'll always bring it back to familiarity. It's just about what's familiar. And if
yeah,
we can really simplify it to go, oh, that felt safe to me for some reason, even if it was unhealthy, right?
yeah,
Might be grasping onto a scarcity mindset or a negative thought pattern or a limiting belief or something like that. We know it's
yeah,
bad for us, but for some reason we feel safe there. The only
yeah.
reason why we feel safe is because it's predictable. But it's predictable in knowing that it doesn't serve us.
Yeah,
So I always encourage folks, and I say this to myself too, when I start to feel something that feels like a regression, I go, nope, you're just dropping into the familiar.
yes,
And then how can we create a new familiar? Right. And my
yeah,
partner always says, don't close doors, don't close doors. And I love just that simple thought process of when we want to go to the negative or when we want to go to, oh, that won't work for me, or, something like that.
yeah,
We close that door, right? So as we go into whatever this new version is of us, and like you said, Cairo, it is along a more aligned path. It is going to
yeah,
be more connected with our divine purpose and the reason why we're in this incarnation on this amazingly challenging planet to live on. It's crucial for us to just really give ourselves grace and gentility through these
yes.
processes because it's unfamiliar. And
Oh, so
again,
much.
yeah, we can know, just to kind of like bring that home, we can know that that is another thing that's bringing the collective together, that we're not alone, that we're all feeling like we're a bit in the
Yeah,
unfamiliar right now.
yeah. That reminds me actually of 2 things, and I took some notes for this, so it reminded me of one of the notes I took, but as you were talking, I kept being reminded of that quote, "Choose the hell that I know over the heaven that I don't." And we
Mm,
get so caught up in these things that are comfortable out of fear of making that jump because what if it's worse or what if it's different and I get scared, but really if you don't jump, you never find that heaven, there's no hell to stay in. You got to jump to that heaven and know that you'll always
Yes.
be cradled. Um, but another thing I wanted to bring up, and something you just said reminded me of it, was that there is also this judgment. I feel like there's, because energies are so high and tensions are so high and we are shedding so much, a lot of the things we are shedding are coming to the surface through triggers and things that we are dealing with in our daily life.
Right.
And because of that, I feel like there's a lot of judgment, self judgment we're all putting on ourselves to be like, why is that coming back up? Or, oh, wow, I thought I was over that, or whatever it is. Why is this coming up now? And I saw this quote. I think it was another healer talking about it on TikTok, and it has stuck with me for weeks now. And people are saying, if I'm really healing, if I'm moving forward, then why does this feel so aggressive right now? But I'm finding for a lot of us, things are coming up to be released for once and for all, which is also something that you said when you were reading for me. But the quote was, everything screams when it dies. And it's so, something about them saying that, right? I was like, that's so true though, to really release an energy that's comfortable, that's, even if it's fear or anxiety, it's clung to you for so long, your beautiful energetic field, that the last stitch of it being taken from you and it being released from you, it wants to grab onto you, it's the comfort that wants you. And for the last bit of it to be released, it needs to scream, you know, for one last
Yeah.
time to you. And I
Yeah.
heard that, and something in it just, like, really clicked, and I swear it's been, like, 2.5 weeks, and I have not stopped thinking about it.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And for those of you who are just listening and not watching, I got like a full body chill when she
Still a
when
dance.
she said that. I was
Yeah.
shimmying, because it is absolutely true. It's kind of like that last like dying breath, if you will,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, which is so funny to say this because before we started recording, everyone, we were laughing about how we both chose to wear black today.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And not necessarily, I don't think necessarily that we're like in the shadow, but this could be a cool segue into the empath talk we were starting to do,
Yes.
Cairo. I'm just trying to think of anything I'd like to speak on. I mean, that's absolutely beautiful, and the familiar hell as opposed to this beautiful heaven that, the only thing that's blocking us from getting there is our own belief in ourself, right?
Yeah.
You know, I am a firm believer that we are the creator in many ways. God is us. We are source. We are all
Me as
connected
well.
in that unity. And
Yeah.
I am, and those statements of I am the creator is so incredibly crucial because, when we're not believing in ourselves, but then we say that we believe in God, to me, it doesn't align. It doesn't align because if we are all this collaborative community, and unity within ourself. If I don't believe in myself, I don't believe in God. And
Exactly.
yeah, and I'm just saying this is a personal opinion, but I do believe
Yeah.
energetically that this is something that can be incredibly empowering. For folks, if anyone wants to like look more into lessons and teachings on that, I would highly recommend following people like Aaron Abke, who really, really teaches heart-based consciousness work and being the creator. And it just that was brought up as you were talking about this because we a lot of us are so exhausted from 2023. And
So
then,
exhausted.
yeah, and we just like didn't necessarily allow ourselves the recharge or nourishing time. Some of us did, but now with this fast forward movement, I mean, people are legit just like deer in headlights right now in so many
Yeah.
ways, because we're just like, what's happening today? What's going on? Can I take
Yeah.
more? And these are just lessons. These are just lessons in believing in ourselves, in finding that self-love, right?
Yeah.
Again, followers, I'm going to preach self-love till the cows come home. It is a
Mhm.
radical act, unfortunately, but it needs to be our foundational act.
Yeah.
So yeah, like before we start like getting into a little bit more of like maybe the astrology components and what sparks the energy in that, when we were talking about the fact that we both chose black today,
Mhm.
it started to bring up the ideas around protection
Yeah.
and also like I like to use the word cocooning as well. For me, and we were speaking specifically to empaths, but I think that we can really also broaden this out, because everyone can really be inclusive in this. But if you identify as someone who's very empathic or highly sensitive, I'm sure you're just going to be snapping your fingers to all this. Um, you know, if we talk seasons, we're ending winter, right? For those of you who are on my mailing list, I just sent out a long message about how winter was supposed to be about nourishing, recharging, resetting, right? Unfortunately, our society prevents us from doing that in so many ways if we allow it to, right? We
Yeah.
can make the holidays stressful. We can worry about our fourth quarter of business. We can, all of
Yeah.
those things. But here's the thing, guys, we're about to enter spring, and this is when our body naturally wants to be charged up. So,
Yes.
do you have the energy reserves to do that? And if you don't, it's not like failure, right? But I
Yeah.
just want to bring that up. Yeah, what do you have to say?
No, I was gonna say it's weird that you're bringing this up right now because I was literally talking about this yesterday of the fact that our society doesn't promote working with the seasons, and it's
Mhm.
literally going against everything our biological body needs and wants to do. And I think it's why there's so much stagnation in our society, so much like unequalness in our society, so much physical health issues, so much mental and emotional health issues because we're not working with the cycles of nature. We are nature. Our physical body is part of nature. And if we're not working with it, we're working against it. There shouldn't be a New Year's in winter where you're making goals and pushing forward and starting a new cycle. It should be a time of rest.
Yeah.
And the fact that we don't do that is why I think, honestly, a lot of times winter and New Year is a really hard time for a lot of people, And it's because our New Year should really be in spring when it's starting to really blossom.
Yeah.
We should work like flowers. Flowers, when they start to bloom, that's when we should bloom. And when
Yeah.
it's their time to sleep and grow, that's when we should relax, sleep, and grow.
Mhm.
Um, but it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that our society kind of wants us to do the absolute opposite.
Yeah. Well, and we know what's based on that. It's all money, but
Yeah.
that's a whole
Yeah.
other rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Money
Yeah.
and control. But you
Yep.
know what? A few things came up when you said that because first of all, what taps in really strongly is our masculine versus our feminine energy.
Mhm.
We know our divine feminine society does not want us to be there. They don't
No.
want us to be in our receptive, nurturing, nourishing state of being open. And that is also winter. Winter is incredibly feminine, while
Yeah.
spring is like, let's bloom, let's create, let's push
Yeah.
forward.
Let's move.
Yeah, and while the
Yeah.
creation aspect is incredibly feminine, right? Spring is about let's start doing. Let's start,
Yeah.
planting the seeds so that we can harvest in the summer, and things like that. So that's really brought up as well. Like on an internal level, are we allowing ourselves to really talk to our masculine, talk to our feminine? And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, our divine feminine energy is our more stillness, receptive, nurturing state where we can be in a place where we can receive the messages that we need to so that we can start to create, gestate, right? And burst forth. Now, it doesn't mean our divine feminine is just submissive. That's absolutely not the case. The divine feminine
No.
can be feisty as hell, and it
Oh,
should
yeah.
be. Um, but as opposed to our sacred masculine, and understand that when I'm talking about these, I'm talking about them from their most healthy place, not when these energies get distorted. But our sacred masculine is our inspired action, right? It's when we've collaborated with that feminine to receive those messages, and then we just feel this really aligned action to take. And that's what
Yeah.
we want the spring to really burst forth in us. So this is just, talking seasons.
Yeah.
Um, again, could go down rabbit holes about how
Yeah.
those energies could then get distorted, things like that. But these are
It's
things that
so
we can,
easy
it's so
to
easy.
tangent, especially with us and about energy chats. It's so easy to be like point A to point Z in 2 seconds.
Exactly. And that's why we love it and why we keep it cash here and do,
Yeah.
just real conversations. So but yeah, I love that. And I think with that, I'll leave it there because this is about tapping in with energy. I think this conversation is good for us to just continue to think about how the energy is impacting us on an individual and a collective level. So I'm going to, probably go on little tangents of society and all that stuff,
Yeah.
but don't want to go
Yeah.
down too many rabbit holes there. So just to kind of like finish off on what we were talking about in terms of these energies and what we're feeling now. We were talking about how we chose to wear black. We were
Black.
talking
Hmm.
about empaths and things like that. Kyra, before we started recording, you were starting to mention what you've been feeling collectively, specifically for people who find themselves very empathic. Do you want to talk about that a little
Yes.
bit?
Yes. There is so much energy flying around because people are in such mass change. And with change, change is very uncomfortable for a lot of people. So, with this fast energy and this change, there's a lot of people whose anxieties are running around, fears are running around. Energy is just very heightened and very much looking for an anchor in a lot of ways. And a lot of times, I feel like a lot of my empaths, my intuitives, my sensitives right now, myself included, are feeling the need to protect their energy a little bit more because there's so much happening right now. And things are so extra sensitive and so heightened because of this Buddha wave going on. So I'm finding a lot of people, even myself, are being called to shield, to wear darker colors, to like veil their head to protect their energetic centers. I see a lot of people really talking about the daily use of tourmaline and black onyx and all of these really shungite protective and cleansing crystals and energies. Yes. um,
I'm displaying my
because
crystals.
yes, if you can't see, if you are just listening, she has all of those on her wrist. But it's sometimes there are times where you want to reach out to other energies and you want to be open, and there are sometimes where you need to protect your energy so you're not coming from a depleted place. And I find that a lot of people, even without even thinking about it on a subconscious level, are leaning more towards these protective, shielding energies rather than maybe being incredibly arms open to the energies of the world lately.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also want to like really pinpoint a word that you used, which was shielding, which I really enjoy because whenever I talk about protection, I always want to make sure that we're not guarding
Yes. Yeah.
in the sense that we're blocking out, but we're creating that protective bubble around us, or we're setting the intention of having this buoyant, protective shield that doesn't block out the entire world, but finds the balance of working with our free will. We can say,
Yeah.
I will let you in. Okay, no, thank you to you. And to be able
Yeah.
to do that with grace and with calmness and peace, obviously is a challenge, but that's our ultimate goal.
Yeah.
And I think absolutely with the shielding and the veiling and crystals, absolutely. And if any of you are new to crystals and getting into it, basics, if you're using protective crystals right now, you need to be smudging that stuff daily, okay?
Yeah.
If because what they're doing is they're absorbing so that they can protect you. So, for example, on really, really long days with clients, this hand that always has jet, tourmaline, and obsidian on it is heavy. It's
Yeah.
literally heavier. And so we always have to really make sure that we're clearing those things. I also talk a lot about the difference between clearing and grounding. So I think or clearing and protection, things like that. So really just like discerning and asking yourself, what is it that you actually need right now? And I think you're right, Cairo. Like we feel that we need more protection. My word is cocooning. I'm still working really hard, but I'm like, ooh, like, am I ready to go out to the grocery store? I don't know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
all those little like public interactions. And it's not that I don't want to have anything to do with people. It's just a very stimulated and sensitive time right now.
Yeah.
Plus
I
it's
even found,
Pisces into Aries season as well. It's going to be
yes.
it's very interesting.
I even found myself out. We had some friends visiting the other day, so we were out in the wild of the city, and we were at this one establishment, and I found myself having to sit in the corner. And it wasn't even a busy night for this place, but it was just, it felt like too much. I was
Yeah.
like, I need to sit in the corner and I need to just kind of like be in my own little world for a minute.
Yeah.
And then I found like doing even little daily things, I need so much more recharge time than I'm normally used to. But I think that's also a personal lesson for me in taking time for self. And that might be a lesson for a lot of people right now.
I think it is a lesson for a lot of people, and I'm really glad you brought that up. And I kind of want to like just piggyback on that to say that there's something really powerful in us honoring the fact that it's like, this is too much, or I need more time, or this or that. But to
Yeah.
not go because this is so easy, and especially in some of the spiritual community, this can be really easy to go into victim consciousness about it.
Yeah.
So finding that teeter totter of, being able to say, like, you know what? Too much. I need some solo time, or I need to clear or ground or cleanse, or I need to give myself Reiki or do some breath work or meditate or work with my tuning forks, whatever.
Yeah.
But to not go into the thought process of no one understands me, I'm more sensitive, things like that. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying this to accuse anyone that's listening. I just know that it is such a common thing when we get overwhelmed
Yeah.
for us to go to.
Yeah, and it's easy to go to that victim, like, very sensitive, very and it's almost like overexhausted place. You know how a lot of us revert back to, and it's just human nature, to, like, being a moody toddler when we're really tired?
Yeah.
I think it's just that mentality, and that's just also part of, the human experience. So it's easy to go to that, and it's harder to reprogram yourself to say, this is just something that I deal with and it's okay. And we all deal with this at one point or the other, but I need to do something to care for myself right now and like
Yeah.
being proactive in that way. But I mean, that's not always easy. No?
It's not always easy, and especially if you are in some sort of personal service or you are a healer or things like
Yeah.
that, right? We want to practice what we preach as well. And
Yeah.
we can talk about all of the cliche statements that are true, like fill your own cup up before you help someone else and things like that. And I've been talking about this a lot lately. How do we shift those phrases into our biology rather
Yeah.
than just staying up in the rational mind about it? So
Yeah.
really being able to go, there's nothing wrong with me for feeling overwhelmed right now.
Yeah.
So like what happens in those moments? Do I go into shame? Do I go into guilt? All of those things. And then am I able to use the tools that I have? Am I able to even communicate with myself? Or maybe I go to numbing or I go to escapism somehow, or maybe I, spiritually bypass myself. I mean, this stuff can happen so much. So
Yeah.
I bring that up because what we have right now coming up are some really supportive energies in terms of this victim consciousness and shifting that into releasing and coming more into this unity based consciousness that's like so exciting if we really work with it together, because it's it's only going to stagnate us and resist us if we go back to what we were talking about before, the old and the familiar, the negative self talk, the limiting beliefs, or sinking into some sort of resentment, right? Others don't
Yeah.
understand me, or I'm going to be hard on myself because I need to um, take more time to do something, or, you know, what have you. So yeah. And so like kind of like looking into my, I'm calling them my cosmos notes, my astrology stuff. So we have our spring equinox coming up March 19th. And our spring equinox is in Aries. It's right at 0 degrees Aries. It's like it could not be more at like the starting point. And we were talking about New Year's, right? Well, if
Uh-huh.
we follow the astrological new year, this is the new year. In terms of the astrology, this is when the year begins. Makes sense, right? So,
Yeah.
this is when we can be starting to implement goals, resolutions, whatever we want to better ourselves. And I always try to recommend not doing giant, giant, giant ones,
Yeah.
and really starting baby step if that's what we need so that we can be really gentle with ourselves. But it's in Aries, and we've also been kind of, to confirm what we've already been talking about, we've been in tons of Pisces energy. Like we just had a new
Yeah.
moon in Pisces that for many people was very emotional, sometimes good, sometimes not so great, but for a new moon, it was very releasey.
Yeah, for
For
sure.
lack of a better word.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know
found
how
that
that felt to you.
strong. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and you are a Pisces as well, so
Yeah.
I know that you were
It was
probably really feeling that.
oh yeah, so emotional. So like purgy for lack of a better way to say it. Yeah.
Mhm. Purgy and releasey, don't we have the best technical
Purgy.
terms?
Uh-huh.
And so a really big theme that's coming up, I mean, we're already in it, but that's just going to continue to deepen and deepen and deepen in this equinox. And then what's kind of coming after that are big, big energies around freedom and around sovereignty.
Yes.
And I think that we can talk about this on an individual level, in the sense that talk about life change. So many people are completely changing their lifestyles, like
Yes.
huge. I am one of
Uh,
them. I know you are one of them as well. But
yes.
we can also look at the world and how freedom and sovereignty are going to pop up in that regard. But I know you have
As a
things
collective.
stirring. So tell me
No, it
what you.
is absolutely so weird you say this because I was just finishing up a reading with a client before we started this. And literally, if you could look at my notes, which I won't share because that's personal to her, but it was literally, I used those exact words, freedom and sovereignty, and
Mhm.
how that's such a big theme for people right now. And I literally wrote on my notes for this the theme of authenticity, self authenticity is coming up really strong for the collective. And a lot of us are being called who have been self sacrificial at times to really put ourselves first and make moves and tell truths that we have held back out of fear of what others would think, or if we would displease the people in our lives or rock the boat for some of us. But authenticity and sovereignty have been like the two biggest themes that I've seen. But it's just wild that you say this because it's literally been the theme of today, too. I'm like, wow, and I don't know much about astrology also. That is not one of my specialties. So when I hear you talk about astrological things and it relates to the messages that we've both received as healers, it always blows my mind. And maybe it shouldn't at this point, but it does.
I think it's great that it does, because we don't want the magic diminished, right? And like for those
Yeah.
of you who are also like novices at astrology, like this isn't fortune telling. Just like tarot readings aren't fortune telling.
No.
And I feel like we talked about this in our last episode together, that
Yeah.
this is just about us learning to work with energy. So if you
Yeah.
have the basics of like knowing your birth chart and just knowing where a full moon falls on your birth chart, it can help you practically to release something in a certain area of your life. It's
Yeah.
just beautiful, but it's not like doom and gloom is coming to you on,
No.
the 3rd of November.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. So freedom and sovereignty, absolutely. And I'm looking at my notes right now, and what's really interesting is, first of all, a lot of divine feminine energy is being
Hmm.
encouraged in this spring equinox, even though we're starting to like um open up into a little bit more inspired action spring energy.
Yeah.
And I think, to me, what's coming up is creation, and just like, what can we create? And that doesn't have to be through our work or a creative project or something gigantic. What can we just create in our reality? What can we birth forward to um, give us and those around us the most helpful and evolutionary support that we can get? Because this is kind of the starting point, you guys, to what you might call new earth,
Yeah.
a new way of being. And again, it's going to feel really uncomfortable. I'm going to
Yeah.
anticipate for the rest of this year in many ways, because it's unfamiliar.
Yeah.
And working together as a collective is never going to be smooth.
No, and it's so going back to also what you were saying about we are all God and God is us.
Mhm.
I that is what I have found to be true, and that wasn't necessarily something that I thought before awakening these abilities. And, you know, I grew up with a religious family, spiritual and religious, but I that was like part of my spiritual awakening and like really like a outer body panic experience of all these things that I was finding. But we all stem from this one piece of consciousness that is the creator, that is God. So in a way, we really are. And everything around us is us experiencing ourselves from a different perspective. So it makes sense why the way you feel about yourself gets magnified and it's controls the experiences that you have with certain people around you because your external world is a direct reflection of your internal world. So
Mm.
all of the mass change that we are going on and all the shedding we are going through as like our singular soul people right now, I don't know why that was so hard to get out, is happening also as a collective in our society. Things are being shed. A lot of truths are coming up that feel really, really scary, really doom and gloom, but they're coming up because they can no longer stand because they can't come with us to New Earth in a way, if you want to say it that way. So what's
Mhm.
happening on a personal level for all of us is also happening on a magnified level in our society and in as a collective.
Yeah, absolutely. And it feels like so much at once, right? Like another big theme with this equinox coming up is more increased psychic ability, you know?
Yeah,
So those of you
seeing
who've
that
been
happen a lot.
yeah, so like those of you who've been doubting yourself, like we're not only we're really in multitasking mode right now, you guys, because we're not only continuing to shed, continuing to purge things that we no longer need, we're trying to also nourish and be there for ourselves and practice self-love. And all at the same time, our abilities and sensitivities are getting stronger and more sensitive and more overwhelming. So it's
Yeah,
just we're building on the layers, right? And we're riding that Buddha wave and waking up every morning going, what can I learn today? You know,
yeah,
what is the lesson I can learn? How can I be a better version of myself today? How can I more deeply love myself today? You know, if we can really be more in the present moment, because I know another huge part of this with this forward movement is it's very easy for us to project our minds into the future just constantly,
yeah.
whether it's fear based, like I worry about this thing happening, or let's
Mhm.
get there, let's get there, let's get there. And
Yeah,
so coming back into the now, into our divine feminine, into this receptive state is going to help us to, and I'm trying to connect this to what you're saying, is going to help us to really connect to more of that unity based consciousness. Because
yeah.
when we can connect that way, I dream of a place where we would not even dream of harming another individual because that's just it doesn't compute. Because
No,
if I were to harm that individual, I am harming myself, period.
exactly, exactly. Yes, yes.
Yeah. I mean that's that's the world I want to live in one day. And the truth is
Same.
that
It's the
we
world we will live in.
and it's a world that many of us did live in eons
And
ago.
and have lived in. Yeah, a lot of us
Yeah.
don't realize how old our soul is and what we've seen, and that's the only reason that this shift is possible. A lot of people don't understand the part and the power that they have in controlling and growing into this new reality that not only are you aware of on a subconscious level, but you've lived before. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are embracing, or a lot of these psychic abilities are growing because they're opening up more to themselves.
Yeah.
And a big, like, a lot of advice that comes forward, and it just keeps coming up, and it's coming up right now again, is the way forward is to go back to the basics of almost childlike wonderment, childlike innocence, childlike, it's like just loving energy. Like a child doesn't think about the future or the past. They live in the moment. They look at everybody else as if they are a piece of themselves because they still have that like blissful innocence of the world. And in order for the world to change to be part of this loving, blissful, innocent society, we have to see it that way in order for it to happen. So a lot of us are being called to do inner child work, to connect more with our child, and to just have more fun in this reality and in any
Yeah.
reality.
I mean, hearing you talk about, I mean, you know the work I do. You're preaching all my words, which
Yeah.
I love.
Yeah.
Um, like in addition to connecting with the child, and also coming into our stronger abilities, trusting in our intuition more. To me, it really just feels like we're coming back home.
Yeah.
But we block ourselves because we don't fully, maybe, have faith in the fact that we have been here before.
Yeah, a lot of people doubt, like, they'll believe other people's that they've been here, other channelers, psychics, like, "Oh, I completely believe it when they say it," but then when it's themselves, they're like, "But what are the odds that I have that or I was here?"
Right.
Like, it's the belief in others, but lack of trust and belief in self.
Right.
And it's hard, that, like, imposter syndrome. I mean, this goes back to the last chat we did together and podcast was like, it's not easy and it's hard because you can trust somebody else, but when it's you, you have all of these feelings and self-doubts, and really growing past that is also the way forward, because I promise everybody listening to this or watching this, you are so much more than you can even dream up or think.
Absolutely. And I mean, truly the magic is inside of us, and we all
Oh,
have so much immense power. I mean, I always love to bring up the subconscious because that is 95% of us that we're completely
yeah,
unaware of. I mean, just that alone, or the fact that, we barely use our brain, like we use the tiniest little portion, just those kind of things in and of itself should show us our immense capacity. And again, if you consider yourself someone spiritual, right? Ask yourself, are you leaning on your guides, God, things like that, in the sense of just tell me what to do and I'm submitting, or are you collaborating? Because we absolutely have those days where you can just, drop to your knees and just say, help, help, beautiful,
yeah,
do it. But
yeah,
also know that that help that they're going to give you is showing that you have the power. It's not the savior coming in and giving you, the gift. They might be in some way, right? Through
yeah,
your own thought process or through your own actions, but they're really showing you your true power. And, you know, so I want to kind of like bookend that and saying, like, guys, like the intense feelings and emotions and these sensitivities, they're not going away.
yeah,
They're not going away. It's going to continue. And that's why it's really good to know, again, we're not alone. We're going
mhm,
to take it one day at a time. The truth of the matter is, you guys, is that 2023 was so much more pressurized. It was
yeah,
so much heavier and darker. Now, it doesn't mean that this year isn't going to be turbulent. It already has been. And I think it
yeah,
will continue to be, but it's kind of like those last couple pushes in the birth canal.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And we
yeah,
see the light. We see that light, and we're
yep,
just doing our best to move forward into that light. Um, and only we can hold ourselves back. And that's really the truth. It's a harsh truth
yeah,
that sometimes it's hard for us to, believe. But I say this because knowing that the energies are going to continue to be very deep feeling and very emotional, we know what to expect. And we don't have to
yeah,
go, I'm crazy, you know?
yeah, and we
Um,
know that we can care for ourselves through it and that there is a way
abso-
through it.
absolutely. And I also want to bring up just a really factual thing that mainstream media will not talk about is that we have an immense amount of solar flares coming into our existence.
Oh
It's
my
been
god,
happening
yes.
f Yeah, I mean, it's been happening for years, guys, but years ago, we would get one, like, every couple years, and now we're having, like, some of the highest class ones, maybe 2 to 3 within 48 hours, like,
I think we had I just recently saw something on this. I think it was like a month or 2 ago, the biggest, largest solar flare we've seen in over hundreds of years. Like, there is so much going on that you're right, the mainstream doesn't talk about it, but it affects us so deeply. And
yeah,
I urge all of you guys to, like, really look into that. There's so many people that monitor this online and, in the media, but they don't publicize it
yeah,
to a
and
mass
and
scale.
and really what they're doing for us, you guys, not to us, but for
Mhm,
us, is that they are inevitably, we cannot escape it, they are upgrading our systems, our
mhm.
physical, our emotional, our mental, and our spiritual systems. So
Yeah,
with that, we are going to be exhausted, or we're going to be
Yeah.
buzzed, or we're going to be really emotional, or we're going to be kind
Yeah.
of stagnant. We go through, I mean, some people will call them ascension symptoms, things like that. But these solar flares are very real.
Mhm.
Huge, huge energetic bursts from the sun moving towards Earth have to be affecting us, right? So
Yeah.
we have to be able to say that that's a thing and that it can
Yeah.
affect us in many different ways. So I say that mostly for just validation because I never want anyone to feel like they're just going crazy.
Yeah.
Because
And it's easy to feel that way
it
sometimes, you
it
know?
it is, especially if we're cocooning, right? And we're
Yeah.
not necessarily around a lot of people who are saying, "Oh yeah, I feel that too. I feel that too." So that's why things like the internet are beautiful in times like that because you can be connected to a community without necessarily having to be in the room with all the bodies, you know, and
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
stimulation. So I'm just looking back at my notes. I'm still on this equinox, so with this emotion stuff there, I have cocooning, cocooning, cocooning.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling that, like don't worry, you guys. Like it just means that your body's asking you for that love. Like you could even be feeling like some sadness or some melancholy and not quite know why. Don't worry,
Yeah.
you're not all of a sudden depressed. Like we're just going through some waves right now. And
Yeah.
to speak to what Cairo was saying is that, as we're releasing these things that no longer serve us, it's going to be painful. And I
Yeah.
think and I also feel like some of you have already this has happened. You've had that
Yeah.
scream that Cairo
Yeah.
was talking about. And so we can even think after the scream and the death, exhaustion. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I would be so tired after something like that, releasing something that didn't serve me. And then you have all this space and you're
Yeah.
like, what the hell do I do with this? This
Yeah.
is so not normal. And we
It
try to
takes a lot
resist
of
that
your
urge. Yeah,
yeah.
no, please.
It takes a lot of your energy, and so much is happening on an energetic level, and if you're ever like, "Wow, I'm so exhausted, but I feel like I have no right to be exhausted," there's so much happening behind the scenes energetically that you even sometimes understand or know. So allow yourself, don't judge when you need rest or when you don't, or whatever it is that you
Yeah.
need. Just nurture yourself like you would almost like if you were a child and give your body, give your mind, give your mentality that love and that space and what you need. Cause that's really the only way through,
Yeah.
a lot of this purging.
Exactly, because guys, these solar flares are just going to continue to get stronger. And like,
Yeah.
particularly in April, I'm just looking to see if I have anything, pretty much everything about this equinox we've really brought up. It's, we need to be internally courageous right now. We need to
Yeah.
be kind to ourselves. We need to be really present so that we're not jumping into impulsive acts as well, because people can be
Yeah.
very heightened in their emotions.
Yeah.
And so that's something for us to just really watch for. But there's just this beautiful theme of regeneration right now as well.
Yeah.
And regeneration rather than just like birthing anew. Like it's a new beginning energy, but it's like I was saying, kind of like coming back home. Like we're
Yeah.
we're we're regenerating that part of us that has been dormant.
Yeah.
And if you resonate with me and have had moments where you are afraid of your own power, it's gonna be tested. It's gonna
Yeah.
be really tested right now in a beautiful way. So what I find really interesting about the energies with this is that we have this new beginning energy in the equinox, right? And then just 5 to 6 days later, we're gonna enter beautiful eclipse season. We haven't had these eclipses in a while, but we're gonna have a full moon and lunar eclipse on March 25th. And I'm speaking as if we're in the States for those of you who are international. Look it up for your own time zone. But what I find really interesting in this is that we have this new beginning energy, and then all of a sudden we have this full moon lunar eclipse, which is like permanent endings. Talk
Yeah.
about holding both at once, right?
Uh-huh.
So I feel, and this has been another broken record message from end of last year into this year is, are we holding that ending and the beginning at once, or are we trying to like shove one to the side so that we can
Yeah.
focus on one? So I feel like that lunar eclipse on the 25th is going to really continue to kind of hit the nail on the head with that. But it's also bringing in, we've got some aspects with Eris, which is goddess of discord and kind of like controlled chaos. And I feel like there's going to be like this really rebellious energy with that too, you guys. So take take with that what you will. I think it's going to be
Yeah.
really, really interesting. And it's just going
Oh,
to
for
build
sure.
from there.
Also, I wanted to, before we like close out, I wanted to pull some crystal cards for the collective. And it's
Yeah.
so interesting because as you were talking, you literally just said new beginnings. The first card we got was Moss Agat. I don't know how to say agate, right?
Agate. Yeah.
um, which is new beginnings, nature connections, and security. So that working with nature, working with like the cycles of nature. Then we have Iolite, which is feminine divine and inspiration, and like that divine feminine energy that we're trying to balance with the divine masculine. And also, like divine feminine energy gives me that motherly, nurturing energy that we need for ourselves. And then we have Celestite. I don't know how to pronounce any of these, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But communication with the beyond, tranquility, good fortune, and deep meditation. And to me, this is connecting with the God that you associate with and understanding that you are like the angelic realm, the God realm, the you are God incarnate, all of that. Really bringing all of these aspects together is important for the collective right now.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for doing that. Yeah, I think that that's all just like amazing confirmation. And as we continue to, I mean, we really just touched on March, which is hilarious. I mean, as we
Yeah,
continue to move, like April, we're going to then have a more powerful solar eclipse and new moon. That's going to be on April 8th. That's probably going to be like one of the biggest pivot points of this year. So just be
yeah,
really good to yourself, you guys. And moving into April 20th, we're going to have this Jupiter Uranus conjunction, which is bringing in, oh my gosh, it's just, it's going to essentially be like an ignition point that's bringing us into the new horizon. So I am personally viewing from now until April 20th as that kind of final birth canal push. So again, be gentle with yourself, be kind to yourself, do the work that you need to do, right? And sometimes the
yeah,
work is to rest. Um, Obviously, themes of divine feminine energy. And yeah, thank you for those crystal cards and the Celestite, especially. I'm really feeling it's such an angelic
yeah.
crystal. um, so yeah, if you're working with angels or archangels or, if you feel called to do that, I mean, call down on them and just really
Yeah,
ask for their protection and their guidance right now because we've got this. The truth is, in a nutshell, this is a really exciting time. And
it
we
is.
can we can make it really negative or we can make it amazing. And I think that we can
Because
make it
again,
amazing.
you
Mhm.
control the way you see the world is what is reflected back to you. So it is really up to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So Kyra, do you have any like final, messages that you want to, send anyone or last words?
Just to be kind to yourself and understand that we are in a transition that has already been successful. And you would not have chosen to incarnate and come down now if you weren't ready or capable to assist the earth in this change. So it is a privilege to be here. It is a privilege to be here with you all. And I'm so grateful for you and this community and to be incarnated at this time.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, and I will add my final words of, you know, what's already done is done. And to know that what we have released has been released and that we can just sit in that full belief that it is. Let's let go of the fear. Let's
Mhm.
really choose our power. Let's not wait for other people to choose things for us. Okay? That is my soapbox statement.
Yeah. I love it.
And as always, you guys, we love you so much. I honor all of you beautiful souls for everything that you are doing now, what you are about to do. And I hope you have a wonderful, balanced rest of your day.